Why don't they just understand that when he hits them, it means he loves them? Jane questioned herself as her eyelids began to droop. Hello, you are listening to In My Words. The book I am reading from is titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles. This book is not intended for young readers. After each reading session, I will briefly give information about a chosen plant. I hope through my words you will gain insight, knowledge, and a deeper appreciation and understanding of this mysterious and intricate world. Though the road may be long and hard, compassion and beauty can be gained through the enjoyment of nature and experiencing its wondrous gifts. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate all of you who are watching my videos. Leaving a comment will help my videos get noticed more in the future and allow other people to view them. Also, purchasing one or both of my books will be very helpful. Thank you for your time and consideration. Chapter 29. When will it end? Sitting on the living room floor, the children waited for Dad to speak. He seemed confused. Looking around the room, Dad took note of the broom in the corner. The handle was made of wood. The bristles were hard and held in place by a metal plate. I'm sure you're smart enough to handle this, Thomas stated with sarcasm toward his wife. Jane looked at her husband, unsure of what he wanted of her. She didn't like being put in the middle of his mistreatments of the children. Why are you standing there looking stupid? He snarled. I don't know what you want me to do, she replied meekly. Of course you don't. That's because you're a dumbass bee who is too stupid to know anything. Then, as if speaking to a child, he said through gritted teeth, Take the children into the kitchen. When I'm done with one, send in the next. Grabbing Jane's chin to turn it towards the children, he continued his emotional assault. See the 4 little asses sitting on the floor? Those are the kids I'm talking about. Got it? Who do you want first? She dared to ask. You're so effing stupid. Who do you think? Joe, she responded. No, S. How did I ever marry such a stupid bee? Tears sprang to Jane's eyes, and quickly she lowered her head, not wanting Thomas to see how much he had upset her. The children tried hard not to listen to Dad's hurtful words, but nonetheless, they penetrated into their hearts. Shoving his wife into the children, Jane quickly shuffled them off into the kitchen. Crying, the children walked the few feet from Dad to await further punishment. Jane, Thomas shouted, what the F are you waiting for? Tomorrow? Walking her oldest son from the kitchen to the living room, Joe was crying softly. Those pissy baby tears won't do you any good, sneered Dad. Effing bend over the chair, you stupid S. Joe did as he was told. Dad took the broom and hit the young boy with the hard broom, continuing to beat his son's small body until he fell to the floor. Jane stepped in just as Thomas was about to hit Joe again. She didn't want to see her son beat any further. Should I bring in Sissy now? She questioned. Fear flowed through her body as she peeked sideways to see how her son was faring. His butt and legs were covered with welts from the metal of the broom, and he seemed to be lying much too still. Looking down at his small wife, Thomas grabbed a handful of hair on the back of her head. Violently whipping her head to the side, he said, Take your son and bring me the next. Shoving her to the ground, he said, Do you understand how it works now? Yes, she nodded, her voice a mere whisper, feeling as if she were shrinking into nothingness. Jane knew she didn't want to be here today, but once again she was pulled into Thomas's tirade towards the kids. When will they ever learn? She wondered to herself. Just let it happen, and then it'll be over with. Rising to her feet, Mom called out softly, Joe, get up. Joe rose slowly. Small sparks of electricity seemed to be shooting through his body. Wanting to leave the presence of his dad as quickly as he could, Joe stumbled his way out of the room and then up to his bed. Feeling berated and humiliated, tears sprang to Mom's eyes, but she held it in as she went to get Sissy. Each child was subsequently brought to his or her knees, and all had numerous welts by the time their beating was done. When their punishment was finally over, all had gone to bed without the benefit of having eaten at all during the entire day. For several days after being beaten, the children found it very difficult to sit or even play. The days passed. Each child dealt with their anguish in their own way. Sissy had a stern face, her expression exposing the hatred she felt for everyone in the family. She was mad at Joe for suggesting that they run away. She was mad at Scott because he agreed. She was even mad at Sarah, for if it weren't for her little sister, they would have been at their grandparents' sooner. And she was even mad at her dad for coming home one day early. Joe and Scott kept to themselves, putting on a brave face. Neither wanted Dad to know just how much pain he had inflicted upon them. As for Sarah, her bedwetting increased, which angered the whole family. Jane had thoughts of her own as she drifted off to sleep that night. She thought about how much Thomas loved her and how happy they were, but it always seemed as if the children were which caused the friction between the two of them. Why don't they just understand that when he hits them, it means he loves them? Jane questioned herself as her eyelids began to droop. In the deep recesses of her mind, as the beginning of stages of sleep came upon the young woman, she thought, if he didn't hit me when he hits the kids, he doesn't love me. Why doesn't anyone understand that? I want his attention, and so if it means that I get hit because of it, that's okay. What would life be like if I had a man that was always nice to me? I think it would be so boring. Sleep overtook Jane, and her mind continued its assault on her throughout the night. Before I continue reading, I just want to make a comment on Jane's thoughts. This is a very touchy subject for me. It is not all right for someone to abuse you in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter who they are, how old, or how young they are. It is not right. It can be emotional, sexual, physical, and so many other types of abuse. So please, if you are in an abusive relationship or know someone is, please help them, help yourself, help your children, help whoever needs the help because they need to get out now. Today's plant is sweet pea. As of this recording, it is nearing the end of October. We have had some very low lows, all the way down to 18 degrees, and at this point, some very high highs, all the way up to 87. My tomatoes were frozen on the night that it was in the upper teens. Also, my watermelon and other heat-requiring fruits and vegetables really took a hard hit on that very cold night. But as usual, the weather people said it wouldn't get below freezing, which is 32 degrees. And for myself, I really should know better, but there are times when I just can't get to every vegetable or fruit right away, and then I end up losing some of my crop. No matter how experienced you are, you can never really put a lot of stock into the weather. You must honestly go by what feels right to you and how much time and investment you are willing to put into your garden. However, don't let that stop you. Just plant, enjoy the vegetables, fruits, flowers, trees, or whatever you receive, and just be happy that you have them and that you grew them yourself. Anyways, putting that all aside, the rest of my garden is getting itself ready for the winter. I will be planting my sweet peas in the next couple of days, along with some garlic and potentially some onions. So for today, I am talking about sweet peas. I find sweet peas to be amazingly beautiful. It really doesn't matter where they are planted. The vibrant color can be seen so far away. It's just amazing. And the aroma, it's unmistakable. It's just a beautiful scent. The colors range from deep purples to red, pinks, and white. Some are bicolored. The plants tend to sprawl. They're viney type of plants. Many people trellis them. Some people allow them to sprawl. For myself this year, I kind of did an in-between thing. I put them in one of my very high raised bed gardens, and I put it next to a pole, and I just allowed them to grow that way. So some went up and some sprawled down to the ground. This year I didn't want to take the extra time to add trellising to them. I've just been overwhelmingly busy. So anyway, that's my excuse for this year. Birds and bees tend to love this plant, and the sweet pea seed itself really needs to be planted in cool to cold weather. Ground needs to be cold for the seeds to germinate. Please keep in mind that sweet peas are not edible. For some reason, people think they look a lot like pea plants, and I don't quite understand that. However, the pods do look somewhat similar, but they are not edible. However, if you look closely at your plant, you will notice a great deal of difference between the sweet pea and the edible pea plant. The pea plant has soft, pliable, rounded, hairless stems, where the sweet pea plant has more of it's really hard to describe. It's kind of has like a rounded edge, which you can see here in the pictures, and then kind of flat on the side. I don't know. It's definitely not a pea plant. And the stems are stiff and they are hairy. The seed pod of the sweet pea is also hairy and more stiff. Pea plants have smooth pods. Sweet pea plants have hairy, hard pods. And if you're drying your sweet pea plants, you will notice that the seed itself tends to be black and hard, where with your edible peas, they will be soft and green. And of course, most people know what edible peas look like. Well, I hope for today this helps you to identify the difference between these two plants and give sweet peas a try. Like I said, they're very simple. Plant them in the coolest weather you can without it being frozen ground. And as for myself, like I said, I am going to be starting mine now because it's a perfect time of year. And that way, next year in the spring, these plants will be blooming before many, many other plants do. However, they are way up there with the crocuses, which bloom actually through the snow. So I hope you enjoyed today's plant, the sweet pea. Please like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to having you join me again next time, where I will highlight another plant, and I will continue to read from the book titled The Monster We Call Dad by D.A. Riles, which you can purchase from Amazon.com. Thank you for having joined me.